Solving equations giving different forms. Solve an equation means to find the value or values that the variable that would make the equation true. So the left side equals right side. These values are also called the solutions or the roots. And for a quadratic, it's really the x-intercepts. So we already remember that if we see a quadratic in factored form, y equals, we set y equal to 0, so that's why there's a 0 there. We need to figure out what values of x would make this true. For each one of these, again, we can either have 0 times a number equals 0, that is true, or a number times 0. So what would x have to be to make this bracket equal to 0? So we set it equal to 0. And one of our solutions is x equals 5. From here, x equals 1. Again, if we recognize that right off the bat, we have our solution. It's in factored form. To check if we're correct, we're going to sub it back in. So when x equals 5, five minus 5 is 0. 0 times 4 does in fact equal 0. Nice. When x is worth 1, one minus 5 is negative 4. 1 minus 1 is 0. 0 does in fact equal 0. The left side equals the right side in each case. So those are correct. Those are my solutions. Those are my x-intercepts. If we see a trinomial in standard form, or just a trinomial, we can factor it and then pull out our solutions or our x-intercepts. So again, for a simple trinomial, meaning that the coefficient in front of the x squared term is 1, we're looking for two numbers that multiply to negative 22 and add to 9. And those numbers are going to be positive 11 and negative 2. These numbers go right into the brackets. So x squared plus 9x minus 22 factors into x plus 11, all in brackets, times x minus 2, all in brackets. From there, now we have factored form, just like above. Our solutions, x equals negative 11 and x equals positive 2. So there's our solutions, or our x-intercepts, or our roots for this quadratic function. If I look at two more examples, I see there's an A term, a B term, no C term. The first step I look, is there a common factor? Is there something I can pull out from both of those? Both multiples of 2, and they both have at least one x. So that common factor gets in front. 2x squared divided by 2x gives me x. Negative 10x divided by 2x is negative 5. That is the same as 2 times x plus 0 times x minus 5. So from there, to make that equal to 0, x could be 0. That's one of my x-intercepts. From that bracket, x equals positive 5. 5 minus 5 is 0. And I've got my two x-intercepts, or my two solutions. Example 4, x squared plus 6x equals 7. Step 1, let's bring all the terms to one side. To do that, I need to get rid of the 7 on the right, so take away 7 from the right, which means I take away 7 from the left. Now I have a simple trinomial. I'm going to factor it and use my magic numbers, which is going to get x plus or minus a number times x plus or minus a number. Two numbers that multiply to negative 7 and add to 6 are 7 and 1. And because it's going to add to positive 6, it's plus 7, take away 1. That means my x-intercepts, or my solution, negative 7 and positive 1. If I continue with a few different examples, the next two. Bring everything to the same side. I want that a term to be positive. I'm such a positive guy. I notice that is not a simple trinomial. So I'm going to look for a common factor. Yeah, even, even, odd. No common factor. Now I need to think about doing this by decomposition. I need two numbers that multiply to 2 times 6, which is 12. So they're going to multiply to 2 times 6, 12, and they're going to add to 7. When I look for two numbers that multiply to 12 and add to 7, I have positive 3 and positive 4. So again, that x term breaks down into 3x and 4x. I can decide which one I put first. I chose 4 to go first and 3 to go second. I now factor by grouping. I find a common factor out of the first two. 2x squared divided by 2x gives me x. 4x divided by 2x gives me 2. I look for a common factor out of my next two. It's 3, and that's a positive 3. 3x divided by 3 is x. 6 divided by 3 is 2. What's in the brackets is the same, so they get matched up or paired up. What remains, 2x, goes in the next bracket, plus 3. My solution from there is negative 2. My solution from there is negative 3/2. So there's decomposition. The other way that I can do this, the crisscross method, I'm going to just write that one, so I've already done that step. I think about what are my numbers that multiply to 2, 1 and 2. What multiplies to 6? 1 times 6, 6 times 1. So 1 times 6, 6 times 1. I also have 3 times 2 or 2 times 3. So I look and I say 1 times 3. Remember, all these are x's, so 1x times 3x is 3x. And 2x times 2 is 4x. When I add those together, that's 7x. I was trying to get to 7x. So now those are my brackets. I have 1x plus 2 in one bracket, and I have 2x plus 3 in the next bracket, and I factored. And then from there, I still get my two solutions. The last example is what happens if we see this vertex form. Now, two things we can do. We can expand that. That squared, remember, means x minus 1, all in brackets, times x minus 1. If I FOIL, x squared minus x plus 1, that gets rid of all the brackets, and I still have take away 4. I now collect like terms. Now I'm going to factor. Two numbers that multiply to negative 3 and add to negative 2. It's going to be negative 3 and positive 1. Now from there, what does x have to be to make that bracket equal 0? x is 3, and x is negative 1. I could also, as a secondary way of solving this, use my understanding of algebra and equation solving. That's trapped. The x is trapped in the brackets. I need to get rid of any subtraction or addition outside the brackets first. So add 4, add 4. Now I've got x minus 1 all squared equals 4. There's no multiplication or division outside the brackets. There is an exponent. To get rid of squared, I'm going to take the square root, which means I take the square root of 4. That leaves me x plus 1 equals, the square root of 4 is 2, but don't forget, it's also negative 2. So it's positive 2 and negative 2. There's two solutions. So when I add 1 to get x by itself, I'm really also doing x is going to be positive 2 plus 1, and x is going to be negative 2 plus 1. And we get the exact same solution. So all previous math still exists. Our understanding of algebra and equation and solving for one variable can still help us if we forget a very important part. So what does that mean? Some quadratics can be solved by factoring. To solve a quadratic equation by factoring, we want to first write it in standard form. Remember standard form, ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. Then factor what's on the left side, or if you have the 0 on the left side, factor the side with all the terms. Right? So it's not just the left side, the side with all the terms. Next, we're going to set each factor equal to 0, which we did in our first examples, and then after that we saw the pattern. So again, setting it equal to 0 is that, and then we're going to solve for x. So solutions to quadratic equations are also known as the roots and x-intercepts. Sometimes also called the zeros. What would x be to make it 0? Sure.